Your mind is not your friend. That's the truth most people refuse to face. You think your thoughts are trying to help you, but they're not. You think your mental patterns are protecting you, but they're actually keeping you trapped. Your mind has one job: keep you exactly where you are. Keep you safe. Keep you comfortable. Keep you small. And it's incredibly good at that job. Every day you wake up with plans to change. You know what you should do. You know what would make your life better, but by the end of the day, you're back in the same patterns, making the same choices, living the same life. That's not accident. That's not lack of willpower. That's your mind doing exactly what it was designed to do. Work against your growth. This isn't about motivation. This isn't about positive thinking. This is about understanding how your own mental programming keeps you stuck and what you can do to override it. Because until you understand why your mind fights your progress, you'll keep losing the same battles over and over again. Chapter 1. Your brain loves mediocrity more than you love success. Your brain has a favorite state. It's not excellence. It's not growth. It's not achievement. Your brain's favorite state is predictable mediocrity because predictable means safe and safe means survival. Your brain doesn't care if you're happy. It doesn't care if you're fulfilled. It only cares that you stay alive. And in your brain's calculation, staying exactly where you are is the safest bet. This is why you can have all the motivation in the world on Sunday night. Plan your entire week, set your goals, and by Tuesday afternoon, you're already falling back into old patterns. Your brain has hijacked your good intentions. It's convinced you that the effort isn't worth it, that you should wait until next week, that this isn't the right time, that maybe you're not cut out for this anyway. Your brain is a master manipulator. It doesn't attack your goals directly. That would be too obvious. Instead, it makes you feel like quitting was your idea. It whispers reasonable-sounding excuses. It points out every obstacle. It magnifies every difficulty. It makes the comfortable choice seem logical and the growth choice seem impossible. Think about the last time you tried to build a new habit. Maybe it was waking up early. Maybe it was working out. Maybe it was starting a side project. How long did it last? A few days, a week, and what happened? Your brain started negotiating. It started making deals. Just this once. You're tired today. You'll start fresh tomorrow. One missed day won't matter, but one missed day always matters. Because it's never really about that one day. It's about your brain testing your resolve. It's checking to see if you're serious this time or if you're just playing games like always. And the moment you give in, your brain learns something powerful. It learns that your commitment is conditional. It learns that your standards are flexible. It learns that with enough pressure, you'll fold. This is why people can be incredibly motivated and still make no progress. Because motivation is just a feeling and feelings are temporary. But your brain's preference for mediocrity is constant. It's always there, always working, always finding new ways to keep you in your comfort zone. Your brain doesn't understand the difference between physical danger and psychological discomfort. To your brain, the fear of failure feels exactly the same as the fear of death. The anxiety of putting yourself out there triggers the same alarm systems as facing a predator. So when you try to do something that matters, something that could change your life, your brain treats it like a threat to your survival. That's why taking action on your goals feels so hard. That's why you procrastinate on the things that matter most. That's why you can spend hours scrolling through social media but can't sit down for 30 minutes to work on your dreams. Your brain is actively working against your progress because it interprets progress as danger. And here's what makes it worse. Your brain gets better at stopping you with practice. Every time you give into procrastination, you strengthen that neural pathway. Every time you choose comfort over growth, you make it easier to choose comfort next time. Every time you quit when things get difficult, you teach your brain that quitting is the solution to discomfort. You're literally training your mind to work against you. And most people don't even realize they're doing it. They think they're just having an off day. They think they just need to try harder next time. But the problem isn't effort. The problem is that they're fighting their own mental programming without understanding how it works. Your brain also loves to create stories that justify mediocrity. It tells you that you're being realistic, that you're being practical, that you're not built for big goals. These aren't truths. These are protection mechanisms. Your brain is trying to save you from the discomfort of trying and potentially failing. So, it convinces you that not trying is wisdom rather than fear. But here's the thing about mediocrity. It's not actually safe. It just feels safe. Living below your potential creates its own kind of suffering. The regret of never trying. The frustration of staying stuck. The slow erosion of self-respect that comes from repeatedly abandoning yourself. Mediocrity is just delayed disappointment. You're not avoiding pain. You're just postponing it. The first step to winning this battle is recognizing that your brain's default setting is working against your highest interests. It's not personal. It's not a character flaw. It's programming. Ancient programming that was designed for a world that no longer exists. But recognition is just the beginning. Understanding the game is not the same as winning it. Chapter 2. The safety algorithm runs your life without your permission. Your brain runs on an algorithm. It's constantly scanning your environment, your thoughts, your plans, looking for threats. And this algorithm has a very simple rule. Anything unfamiliar is dangerous. Anything that requires change is a threat. Anything that could lead to rejection, failure, or discomfort gets flagged as a problem to be avoided. This safety algorithm made sense when your biggest concern was avoiding predators. But now it's sabotaging your attempts to build a better life. Because everything that could improve your life requires you to do something unfamiliar. Everything that could help you grow requires you to step outside your comfort zone. And your safety algorithm interprets every step outside your comfort zone as a step toward danger. This is why you can know exactly what you need to do and still not do it. Your logical mind understands that you should eat better, exercise more, save money, learn new skills, have difficult conversations. But your safety algorithm is running a background program that makes all of these feel unnecessarily risky. Your brain doesn't care that you want to lose weight. When you try to change your eating habits, the safety algorithm sees unpredictability in your routine and flags it as a threat. Your brain doesn't care that you want to start a business. When you think about putting yourself out there, the safety algorithm calculates all the ways you could be rejected or criticized and sounds the alarm. This algorithm is so powerful that it can make you afraid of your own success because success means change and change means leaving behind the familiar version of yourself. Even if that version is struggling, even if that version is unhappy, it's still familiar. And familiar feels safe to your brain. The safety algorithm is also why you sabotage yourself right before breakthrough moments. You've probably experienced this. You're making progress on a goal, things are going well, and then suddenly you do something that destroys your momentum. You miss workouts right before you start seeing results. You procrastinate on projects right before the deadline. You pick fights in relationships right when things are getting serious. This isn't bad luck. This is your safety algorithm detecting that you're moving too far from your baseline and pulling you back. Your brain has a comfort zone thermostat. And when you try to live outside that zone for too long, it automatically adjusts your behavior to bring you back to familiar territory. Your safety algorithm is constantly collecting evidence to support its cautious worldview. It remembers every failure, every rejection, every moment of pain or embarrassment. But it conveniently forgets your successes, your moments of courage, your ability to overcome challenges. This isn't random. This is selective memory designed to keep you from taking risks. The algorithm also creates phantom dangers, threats that don't actually exist, but feel completely real in your mind. You imagine worst-case scenarios. You catastrophize minor setbacks. You interpret neutral situations as threatening. Your brain is essentially running a fear-based simulation program that makes the world seem more dangerous than it actually is. This is why anxiety and overthinking are so common. Your safety algorithm is working overtime, trying to predict and prevent every possible negative outcome. It's constantly asking what-if questions. What if you fail? What if people judge you? What if you're not good enough? What if you make the wrong choice? These questions feel like helpful preparation. But they're actually mental traps that keep you paralyzed. The algorithm also uses your emotions as enforcement tools. When you try to do something that feels risky, it floods your system with stress hormones. It makes you feel anxious, overwhelmed, or depressed. These aren't messages from the universe telling you to stop. These are chemical reactions, designed to make you retreat to safety. But here's what the safety algorithm doesn't understand. Real safety in the modern world comes from growth, not from staying the same. Real security comes from developing skills, building relationships, and creating value. Real protection comes from becoming someone who can handle challenges, not from avoiding them altogether. The people who seem naturally confident and successful aren't running different software. They've just learned to recognize when their safety algorithm is running and choose to act anyway. They understand that feeling scared doesn't mean they're in actual danger. They know that discomfort is not the same as harm. Your safety algorithm will never go away. It's hardwired into your brain. But you can learn to recognize when it's operating. You can learn to distinguish between real threats and algorithmic false alarms. And most importantly, you can learn to take action despite the alarm bells. The goal isn't to eliminate fear or anxiety. The goal is to stop letting them make your decisions for you. When you understand that your brain's safety algorithm is just an overprotective security system, you can start treating its warnings with appropriate skepticism. Chapter 3. You're addicted to familiar patterns even when they hurt you. You're not just comfortable with your current patterns, you're addicted to them. Even the ones that make you miserable. Even the ones that keep you stuck. Even the ones that you consciously want to change. Because familiarity is a drug and your brain is a junkie that will choose the familiar hell over the unfamiliar heaven every single time. This addiction to familiar patterns is why people stay in jobs they hate, relationships that drain them, and habits that destroy them. It's not that they don't want better. It's that better feels foreign. And foreign feels wrong. Your brain interprets unfamiliarity as a sign that something is off, something is dangerous, something needs to be corrected. Think about your daily routine. How much of it is conscious choice and how much is automatic behavior? You probably wake up and reach for your phone without thinking. You probably eat similar foods, take similar routes, have similar conversations. You probably react to stress in the same ways, avoid challenges in the same ways, entertain yourself in the same ways. These patterns weren't consciously designed. They developed over time through repetition. And now they run your life on autopilot. Your brain loves autopilot because it requires less energy. Conscious decision making is expensive in terms of mental resources. So your brain tries to automate as much as possible. But here's the problem. Most of your patterns were formed when you were younger, less experienced, and dealing with different circumstances. The coping mechanisms that helped you survive childhood might be sabotaging your adult success. The defense mechanisms that protected you in past relationships might be destroying your current ones. The habits that got you through difficult times might be keeping you stuck in mediocrity. Your brain doesn't regularly update these patterns. It doesn't ask if they're still serving you. It just keeps running them because they're familiar. And familiar equals safe in your brain's primitive logic. Even if familiar is making you miserable, this is why changing feels so hard. You're not just trying to build new habits. You're trying to break an addiction to old ones. And like any addiction, your brain will resist. It will create cravings for the old patterns. It will make the new patterns feel wrong, uncomfortable, and unsustainable. Your brain is also constantly looking for excuses to return to familiar patterns. It will find reasons why the new way isn't working. It will focus on any evidence that suggests you should go back to the old way. It will make the familiar choice seem logical and the new choice seem risky or unnecessary. This pattern addiction is strengthened by something called the mere exposure effect. The more familiar something becomes, the more your brain likes it, even if that something is objectively bad for you. Your brain starts to prefer the familiar dysfunction over unfamiliar functionality. This is why people often return to toxic relationships, why they go back to jobs that make them miserable, why they abandon healthy habits and return to destructive ones. It's not because they're weak or stupid. It's because their brain is wired to prefer the known over the unknown, even when the known is harmful. Your patterns also become part of your identity. When you've been doing something the same way for years, changing that pattern feels like changing who you are. And changing your identity triggers every alarm system your brain has. Your brain will fight harder to preserve your identity than it will to preserve your happiness. This is why people say things like, "I'm just not a morning person," or "I'm not good with money," or "I'm not the type to go to the gym." These aren't statements of fact. These are identity defenses. Your brain is protecting familiar patterns by making them seem like immutable parts of your personality. But patterns are not personality. Habits are not identity. Just because you've always done something one way doesn't mean you're incapable of doing it differently. Your brain just wants you to think that because thinking otherwise would require acknowledging that change is possible. And if change is possible, then staying the same becomes a choice rather than a fate. The addiction to familiar patterns is also reinforced by intermittent rewards. Sometimes your old patterns do provide temporary relief or pleasure. Sometimes procrastinating does help you avoid stress. Sometimes avoiding difficult conversations does prevent conflict. Sometimes staying in your comfort zone does feel peaceful. These occasional rewards make your brain think the pattern is working. It doesn't consider the long-term costs. It doesn't weigh the opportunity costs. It just remembers that sometimes this pattern provided relief. So, it must be worth keeping. Breaking pattern addiction requires recognizing that your brain's preference for familiarity is not the same as what's actually good for you. It requires understanding that discomfort with new patterns is not evidence that they're wrong. It requires accepting that feeling weird about positive changes is normal and temporary. You have to become willing to feel like a stranger to yourself for a while because that's what growth feels like. That's what becoming a better version of yourself requires. You have to be willing to act in ways that don't feel like you until those new ways become the new you. Chapter 4. Your emotions lie to you about what's important. Your emotions are not truth tellers. They're not reliable advisors. They're not accurate reporters of reality. Your emotions are chemical reactions triggered by thoughts, memories, and interpretations. And most of the time they're lying to you about what's actually important, what's actually urgent, and what's actually worth your attention. Your brain gives you emotional signals about everything. But these signals are based on primitive programming that doesn't understand modern life. Your brain treats the anxiety of starting a difficult project the same way it treats the fear of physical danger. It makes checking social media feel as urgent as responding to a real emergency. It makes avoiding uncomfortable conversations feel as important as avoiding actual threats. This emotional misdirection is why you can feel incredibly stressed about things that don't matter and completely indifferent to things that could change your life. Your emotions aren't measuring actual importance. They're measuring familiarity, comfort, and immediate gratification potential. Think about what makes you feel most anxious. Is it the things that could actually harm you? Or is it the things that could help you grow? Most people feel more anxiety about starting a workout routine than they do about staying out of shape. They feel more stress about having an honest conversation than they do about living with unresolved problems. They feel more fear about pursuing their goals than they do about abandoning them. Your emotions are also terrible at measuring time. They make temporary discomfort feel permanent and permanent consequences feel distant and irrelevant. This is why you can know that you'll regret not exercising, but still feel like skipping the gym today. Your emotions make the immediate discomfort of exercise feel more real than the long-term benefits of fitness. Your brain also creates emotional reactions to protect your ego. When you think about doing something challenging, your brain floods you with feelings of doubt, inadequacy, and overwhelm. These feelings aren't telling you that you can't do it. They're trying to convince you not to try so you can't fail. Your brain would rather preserve your ego than expand your capabilities. This emotional protection system is why you feel resistance to the very things that could improve your life. Your brain creates negative emotions around growth activities because growth requires risk, and risk means the possibility of failure. And failure means potential damage to your self-image. Your emotions also lie about other people's importance. They make you feel like everyone is watching and judging your every move. They make you feel like other people's opinions carry more weight than your own goals. They make you feel like rejection from others is more significant than rejection of yourself. But the truth is, most people are too busy dealing with their own problems to spend much time thinking about yours. Most people are too focused on their own insecurities to judge yours. Most people are too wrapped up in their own lives to care deeply about your choices. Your emotions make you feel like you're constantly on stage. But most of the time, you're not even in the audience. Your emotions also create false urgencies. They make you feel like you need to respond to every text immediately. Check every notification. React to every piece of news. They make you feel like taking time for yourself is selfish, like saying no is mean, like disappointing others is catastrophic. But most things that feel urgent aren't actually urgent. Most things that feel important aren't actually important. Most things that feel like emergencies are just your emotions overreacting to normal life events. Your emotions have no sense of proportion. They treat everything like a crisis. This emotional dysfunction is why so many people live reactive lives. They're constantly responding to whatever generates the strongest emotional reaction rather than acting on what would actually improve their situation. They're driven by feelings instead of guided by values. Your emotions also lie about your capabilities. They make you feel incapable of handling challenges that you've already overcome before. They make you feel like you don't have the strength, the intelligence, or the resources to succeed. They generate feelings of helplessness even when you have multiple options available. This is because your emotions are based on how you feel in the moment, not on your actual track record. When you're tired, your emotions tell you that you're always tired. When you're stressed, your emotions tell you that you can't handle stress. When you're struggling, your emotions tell you that you always struggle, but your current emotional state is not an accurate predictor of your future capabilities. Just because you feel overwhelmed today doesn't mean you can't handle challenges. Just because you feel unmotivated right now doesn't mean you're incapable of taking action. Just because you feel stuck at this moment doesn't mean you can't change. Learning to distinguish between emotional reactions and actual reality is one of the most important skills you can develop. You have to learn to feel your emotions without believing them. You have to learn to acknowledge your feelings without letting them make your decisions. Your emotions will always be there. They're part of being human, but they don't have to run your life. You can feel anxious and still take action. You can feel unmotivated and still show up. You can feel doubt and still move forward. Your emotions are just weather passing through your mental sky. They don't have to determine your direction. Chapter 5. Your mind creates stories that justify staying stuck. Your mind is a storytelling machine. It's constantly creating narratives to explain your behavior, your circumstances, and your lack of progress. But these stories aren't designed to be accurate. They're designed to make you feel better about staying exactly where you are. They're elaborate justifications for avoiding growth, change, and discomfort. These stories sound rational. They sound reasonable. They sound like honest self-assessment, but they're actually sophisticated defense mechanisms that protect you from having to take responsibility for your life. Your mind would rather create a compelling story about why you can't change than face the truth that you simply haven't chosen to change. One of the most popular stories is the timing story. Your mind tells you that this isn't the right time to start. You're too busy right now. You have too many other things going on. You'll start when life calms down, when you have more money, when you have more time, when the circumstances are better, but there will never be a perfect time. Life will never calm down. You'll never have unlimited resources. Your mind knows this, but it keeps telling the timing story because it keeps you safely postponing action indefinitely. The timing story is just procrastination dressed up as wisdom. Another common story is the capability story. Your mind tells you that you're not smart enough, strong enough, talented enough, or experienced enough to succeed. It points to your past failures as evidence of your limitations. It compares you to other people who seem more qualified. It creates a narrative that makes inaction seem like realistic self-assessment. But capability isn't fixed. Skills can be developed. Experience can be gained. Intelligence can be applied and improved. Your mind tells the capability story because it doesn't want you to find out what you're actually capable of. Discovery requires risk, and risk feels dangerous. Your mind also loves the victim story. It tells you that your circumstances are uniquely difficult, that other people have advantages you don't have, that the system is rigged against you, that your background, your genetics, your bad luck, or your past experiences make success impossible for someone like you. The victim story is seductive because it removes all responsibility from you. If success is impossible, then failure isn't your fault. If the deck is stacked against you, then not trying becomes reasonable. If you're powerless, then you don't have to feel guilty about staying powerless. But the victim story is also the most dangerous story because it makes you helpless. It strips away your agency. It convinces you that your choices don't matter, that your effort won't make a difference, that you might as well not try. The victim story protects your ego by destroying your power. There's also the perfection story. Your mind tells you that you need to have everything figured out before you start. That you need the perfect plan, the perfect knowledge, the perfect preparation. That starting before you're completely ready is foolish and destined to fail. The perfection story keeps you in permanent preparation mode. You research endlessly. You plan obsessively. You wait for clarity that never comes. You use preparation as a form of sophisticated procrastination. Your mind tells you that you're being responsible and thorough, but you're actually just avoiding the messiness of actually doing something. Your mind creates the busy story, too. It tells you that you're working hard, that you're doing everything you can, that you're just overwhelmed with responsibilities. It confuses motion with progress, activity with achievement. It makes you feel productive while ensuring you remain unproductive. The busy story is particularly deceptive because it contains some truth. You probably are busy. You probably do have responsibilities, but being busy and making progress aren't the same thing. You can stay busy with low-impact activities to avoid doing high-impact work that might fail. Then there's the special circumstances story. Your mind tells you that your situation is different. That the advice that works for other people won't work for you. That your challenges are unique. Your obstacles are bigger. Your starting point is worse. This story makes you feel special while keeping you stuck. Every successful person has obstacles. Every person who changed their life had to overcome challenges. Every person who achieved something meaningful started with limitations. Your circumstances aren't as special as your mind wants you to believe. Your mind creates the special circumstances story to justify why normal solutions won't work for your supposedly abnormal problems. Your mind also tells the fear-based story. It tells you that the risks are too great, that failure would be devastating, that success might change you in ways you won't like. It creates elaborate scenarios about everything that could go wrong while ignoring everything that could go right. The fear-based story treats potential negative outcomes as certainties while treating potential positive outcomes as impossibilities. Your mind becomes an expert at imagining failure and amateur at imagining success. It can envision 1,000 ways your goals might not work out but struggles to picture even one way they might. These stories feel true because your mind finds evidence to support them. But your mind is selective about what evidence it collects. It notices every example that confirms the story while ignoring examples that contradict it. It remembers failures while forgetting successes. It focuses on obstacles while overlooking opportunities. The stories your mind tells aren't facts, they're interpretations. And interpretations can be changed. You can choose different stories. You can choose stories that empower you instead of limiting you. You can choose stories that motivate action instead of justifying inaction. But first, you have to recognize that these stories are just stories. They're not reality. They're not truth. They're just thoughts that have been repeated so many times that they feel real. And once you see them as stories, you can start writing better ones. Chapter 6. Your brain trades your future for immediate comfort. Your brain has a built-in preference for now over later. It will sacrifice massive long-term gains for tiny immediate rewards. It will trade your future health for present convenience. It will exchange your long-term success for momentary pleasure. This isn't a character flaw. This is how your brain is wired. And this wiring is destroying your potential. Your brain operates on what psychologists call temporal discounting. The further away a reward is in time, the less valuable it seems to your brain. A small reward now feels more appealing than a large reward later. This made sense when immediate survival was the primary concern. But in the modern world, this programming is sabotaging every attempt you make to build something meaningful. This is why you can know that exercise will make you feel better, look better, and live longer, but still choose to stay on the couch. Your brain values the immediate comfort of not moving more than the future benefits of fitness. It's not that you don't want to be healthy. It's that your brain can't properly value future health compared to present comfort. Your brain treats future you like a stranger. When you think about the person you'll be in 6 months or a year, your brain doesn't recognize that person as really you. Future you is an abstract concept. Present you is real, immediate, and demanding attention. So your brain prioritizes present use comfort over future use success. This is why saving money feels so difficult. Your brain values the immediate satisfaction of buying something you want more than the abstract concept of future financial security. It can't visualize the peace of mind that comes with having savings. But it can very clearly feel the pleasure of making a purchase right now. The immediate gratification system in your brain is also incredibly sensitive to triggers. It doesn't just activate when you're actively choosing between now and later. It activates when you see something that reminds you of immediate pleasure. When you see your phone, your brain immediately craves the instant stimulation of notifications. When you smell food, your brain immediately wants the pleasure of eating. Regardless of whether you're hungry, these triggers hijack your decision-making process. You're not consciously choosing immediate gratification over long-term success. Your brain is automatically prioritizing immediate rewards before your conscious mind even gets involved in the decision. By the time you realize what's happening, you've already reached for the phone, eaten the junk food, or avoided the difficult task. Your brain also creates false urgencies around immediate pleasures. It makes you feel like you need to respond to that text right now, like you need to check that notification immediately, like you need to satisfy that craving before you can focus on anything else. These urgencies aren't real. They're manufactured by your brain to justify choosing immediate gratification. But here's what makes this particularly destructive. Your brain gets better at choosing immediate gratification with practice. Every time you choose the easy option over the beneficial option, you strengthen that neural pathway. Every time you choose comfort over growth, you make it easier to choose comfort next time. You're literally training your brain to prioritize short-term pleasure over long-term success. This creates a compound effect in the wrong direction. Not only are you missing out on the benefits of long-term thinking, you're also making it harder to think long-term in the future. You're creating a mental pattern that automatically steers you away from delayed gratification. Your brain also uses rationalization to justify immediate gratification choices. After you choose the immediate reward, your brain creates logical-sounding reasons why that was actually the smart choice. You deserved a break. You'll start tomorrow. You needed to relax. These rationalizations aren't honest analysis. They're your brain protecting its preference for immediate comfort. The immediate gratification system also exploits your energy levels. When you're tired, stressed, or overwhelmed, your brain's ability to consider long-term consequences decreases dramatically. This is why you make your worst decisions when you're depleted. Your brain defaults to immediate comfort because it doesn't have the energy to properly weigh long-term benefits. This is why willpower feels so unreliable. You're not trying to overcome a single urge. You're fighting against a system that's constantly looking for opportunities to choose immediate gratification. Every decision becomes a battle between your conscious long-term goals and your brain's automatic short-term preferences. Your environment makes this battle even harder. Modern life is designed to trigger immediate gratification responses. Your phone sends constant notifications. Advertisements create artificial urgencies. Food is engineered to be immediately satisfying. Entertainment is designed to be instantly engaging. Everything around you is optimized to activate your brain's now over later programming. But understanding this system gives you power over it. When you recognize that your brain is automatically biased toward immediate gratification, you can start designing your life to work with this bias instead of against it. You can remove triggers that activate immediate gratification responses. You can create systems that make long-term choices easier and immediate gratification choices harder. You can also use immediate gratification to support long-term goals. Instead of trying to eliminate all immediate pleasure, you can find ways to make long-term beneficial activities immediately rewarding. You can celebrate small wins. You can track progress. You can find aspects of challenging work that provide immediate satisfaction. The goal isn't to eliminate your brain's preference for immediate rewards. The goal is to stop letting that preference make all your decisions. You can acknowledge the urge for immediate gratification without acting on it. You can feel the pull of comfort without surrendering to it. You can want immediate pleasure while choosing long-term benefit. This requires recognizing that your brain's assessment of what's urgent and important is often wrong. Just because something feels urgent doesn't mean it actually island. Just because something feels important doesn't mean it serves your long-term interests. Just because your brain craves something doesn't mean you need it. Future you is counting on present you to make better choices. Future you is hoping that present you will value long-term success more than momentary comfort. Future you is depending on present you to see past immediate gratification and invest in what actually matters. Don't let future you down by trading their success for present you's comfort. Chapter 7. Your mind negotiates with itself. Until you give up, your mind is constantly negotiating with itself. And it's not negotiating in good faith. It's not trying to find the best solution or make the wisest choice. It's trying to find a way to avoid discomfort while still feeling good about itself. Your mind has become an expert lawyer whose only job is to argue you out of doing difficult things. This internal negotiation starts the moment you commit to something challenging. You decide you're going to wake up early and immediately your mind starts building a case for why sleeping in might actually be better. You commit to a workout routine and your mind begins collecting evidence for why rest might be more important today. Your mind doesn't attack your goals directly. That would be too obvious. Instead, it uses sophisticated arguments that sound reasonable and responsible. It doesn't say don't work out because it's hard. It says you should listen to your body or rest is important for recovery or you've been working hard lately. You deserve a break. These negotiations feel like careful consideration. They feel like wisdom. They feel like you're being thoughtful about your choices. But they're actually elaborate schemes to justify choosing comfort over growth. Your mind is working backwards from the conclusion it wants, avoiding discomfort. To create arguments that sound logical, the negotiation process usually follows a predictable pattern. First, your mind questions the importance of the goal. Maybe it's not as necessary as you thought. Maybe you're being too hard on yourself. Maybe it's okay to lower your standards just a little bit. This phase plants seeds of doubt about whether the goal is even worth pursuing. Then your mind moves to timing objections. This isn't the right time. You're too busy today. You have too much stress right now. You should wait until circumstances are better. This phase makes procrastination seem like strategic planning rather than avoidance. Next comes the bargaining phase. Your mind starts making deals with you. You'll do it tomorrow instead. You'll do half of what you planned. You'll start next week and really commit, then you'll make up for it later. These bargains feel like compromises. But they're actually surrenders disguised as negotiations. If those tactics don't work, your mind escalates to emotional manipulation. It makes you feel guilty for being so demanding of yourself. It makes you feel anxious about the difficulty ahead. It makes you feel overwhelmed by the commitment. It turns doing something good for yourself into a source of stress and self-criticism. Your mind also uses past failures as negotiating tools. It reminds you of other times you tried and didn't follow through. It points out that you've never been consistent with this type of goal before. It suggests that this attempt will probably fail too. So why put yourself through the disappointment? This negotiation process is exhausting. By the time your mind finishes making its case against action, you're already mentally drained. The thing you were supposed to do now feels overwhelming and unnecessary. Giving up feels like relief rather than failure. Your mind has successfully argued you out of your own goals. The negotiations also get more sophisticated over time. Your mind learns which arguments work best on you. If you're motivated by health, it will use health-related justifications for avoiding healthy behaviors. If you're motivated by productivity, it will use productivity arguments for avoiding productive work. Your mind becomes an expert on your own psychological weaknesses. Your mind also creates false deadlines to pressure you into abandoning goals. It makes you feel like if you don't see results immediately, the effort isn't working. It makes you feel like if you miss one day, you've ruined everything. It makes you feel like if you're not perfect from the start, you might as well quit. These artificial deadlines create a sense of urgency around giving up. Your mind makes you feel like you need to decide right now whether to continue or quit. It doesn't give you time to think clearly or consider the long-term consequences of abandoning your goals. It pushes you to make an emotional decision in favor of immediate relief. The negotiation process also exploits your desire to be reasonable. Your mind frames quitting as the rational choice and persistence as stubborn or obsessive. It makes you feel like you're being smart by avoiding unnecessary difficulty. It turns self-discipline into a character flaw rather than a strength. Your mind is particularly good at using external circumstances as negotiating leverage. It points to everything going on in your life as evidence that this isn't the time to pursue challenging goals. Work stress, family obligations, financial concerns, health issues. Everything becomes a reason to postpone growth. But here's the truth about these negotiations. They're not actually trying to help you make better decisions. They're trying to help you avoid decisions altogether. They're designed to create enough doubt and complexity that taking action feels impossible and giving up feels inevitable. The way to win these negotiations is to recognize them as negotiations. When your mind starts making elaborate arguments for why you should skip your workout or abandon your project or postpone your goals, don't engage with the arguments. Recognize that you're being sold something you don't want to buy. You don't have to defeat every argument your mind makes. You just have to refuse to let the negotiation continue. You can acknowledge that your mind has concerns without letting those concerns dictate your choices. You can hear the arguments without being convinced by them. The most powerful response to internal negotiations is simple commitment. When your mind starts arguing, you remind yourself that you've already made this decision. You're not renegotiating. You're not reconsidering. You're just following through on what you've already committed to do. This doesn't mean you can never adjust your goals or change your plans. But those decisions should be made from a clear, rational state, not during the emotional manipulation of internal negotiations. Don't let your mind's lawyer talk you out of your own success. Chapter 8. Your brain uses overwhelm as a weapon against progress. Your brain has discovered that overwhelm is an incredibly effective way to stop you from taking action. When you feel overwhelmed, you freeze. When you freeze, you don't move forward. When you don't move forward, you stay exactly where you are. And staying where you are is your brain's primary objective. But here's what you need to understand about overwhelm. Most of the time, it's not caused by having too much to do. It's caused by your brain's response to having anything challenging to do. Your brain manufactures overwhelm as a protective mechanism to prevent you from attempting difficult things. Think about the last time you felt truly overwhelmed. Was it because you literally had more tasks than hours in the day? Or was it because your brain took a manageable situation and made it feel impossible? Most overwhelm isn't a math problem. It's an emotional reaction designed to make you retreat to safety. Your brain creates overwhelm by forcing you to think about everything at once. Instead of focusing on the next step, it makes you consider every possible obstacle, every potential complication, every future challenge. It turns a simple action into a complex web of interconnected problems. This is why you can feel overwhelmed about tasks that you know how to do. Your brain isn't confused about the actual steps involved. It's trying to convince you that the steps are too difficult, too numerous, or too complicated to attempt. It's using cognitive overload to create emotional paralysis. Your brain also uses time distortion to create overwhelm. It makes urgent things feel more urgent and distant things feel immediate. It compresses all your responsibilities into the present moment, making you feel like everything needs to be done right now. This artificial time pressure triggers your stress response and makes rational planning feel impossible. The overwhelm response is also triggered by perfectionism. Your brain doesn't just consider what needs to be done. It considers what needs to be done perfectly, completely, and immediately. It doesn't think about good enough. It thinks about ideal outcomes. And ideal outcomes feel overwhelming because they require perfect execution. Your brain creates overwhelm by focusing on outcomes rather than actions. Instead of thinking about what to do next, it fixates on final results. Instead of considering the first step, it contemplates the finished product. This shifts your attention from things you can control to things you can't control, which naturally generates anxiety and paralysis. Overwhelm is also your brain's way of avoiding accountability. If the situation feels too big to handle, then not handling it becomes reasonable rather than avoidable. If the challenge feels impossible, then not attempting it becomes wisdom rather than fear. Overwhelm provides a socially acceptable excuse for inaction. Your brain maintains overwhelm by refusing to prioritize. It treats every task as equally important and equally urgent. It won't let you focus on one thing because that would mean admitting that other things can wait. And if things can wait, then the situation isn't actually overwhelming, which would remove the excuse for not acting. The overwhelm response also feeds on itself. When you feel overwhelmed, you waste mental energy on anxiety rather than using that energy for problem solving. This makes you less capable of handling challenges, which makes you feel more overwhelmed, which makes you even less capable. It's a downward spiral that your brain uses to justify complete shutdown. Your brain also uses overwhelm to make you dependent on external rescue. When you feel overwhelmed, you start looking for someone else to solve your problems. Reduce your responsibilities or take care of your challenges. This keeps you in a passive position where you don't have to take uncomfortable action. But overwhelm is not an accurate assessment of your situation. It's an emotional hijacking of your rational thinking. When you feel overwhelmed, you're not seeing the situation clearly. You're seeing it through the filter of your brain's safety system, which is designed to make everything feel more dangerous and difficult than it actually is. The antidote to overwhelm is not reducing your responsibilities. It's changing how you think about them. Instead of trying to solve everything at once, you focus on solving one thing. Instead of thinking about perfect outcomes, you think about acceptable progress. Instead of considering every possible complication, you consider the next logical step. Overwhelm dissolves when you stop trying to hold everything in your mind simultaneously. Your brain can't actually multitask effectively. When you try to think about multiple complex things at once, your brain creates the sensation of overwhelm to force you to stop. The solution is to think about one thing at a time. You can also defeat overwhelm by externalizing your thoughts. Instead of trying to keep track of everything mentally, write it down. Instead of trying to plan everything in your head, create a physical list. When your thoughts are external, your brain doesn't have to work so hard to maintain them, which reduces the cognitive load that creates overwhelm. Overwhelm also decreases when you separate what you need to do from when you need to do it. Your brain creates overwhelm by acting like everything needs to happen immediately, but most things don't. When you assign realistic time frames to your responsibilities, the sense of impossible urgency disappears. The most important thing to understand about overwhelm is that it's not a signal to stop. It's not a message that you have too much to do. It's not evidence that your goals are unrealistic. Overwhelm is just your brain's attempt to keep you from attempting challenging things. And you can feel overwhelmed and still take action. Action is actually the best cure for overwhelm. When you start doing something, anything, the paralyzing sense of impossibility begins to fade. Movement creates momentum. Momentum creates confidence. And confidence dissolves the artificial overwhelm that your brain created to keep you stuck. Chapter 9. Your mind uses perfectionism to keep you from starting. Your mind has convinced you that perfectionism is a strength, that having high standards is admirable, that wanting to do things right is responsible. But perfectionism isn't about excellence. It's about avoidance. It's your mind's most sophisticated strategy for preventing you from taking action that might lead to failure, criticism, or discomfort. Real perfectionism isn't about doing things perfectly. It's about not doing things until you can guarantee perfect results. It's about waiting for perfect conditions, perfect knowledge, perfect timing, perfect preparation. And since perfect never comes, perfectionism becomes a permanent excuse for permanent inaction. Your mind uses perfectionism to disguise fear as conscientiousness. When you're afraid of failing at something, your mind convinces you that you need to prepare more, research more, plan more. It makes you feel like you're being responsible and thorough when you're actually just avoiding the risk of imperfect action. This is why people can spend months researching the perfect workout routine but never actually work out. Why they can spend years planning the perfect business but never start one. Why they can endlessly refine the perfect strategy but never implement anything. They're not being careful. They're being controlled by fear disguised as standards. Perfectionism also creates impossible standards that guarantee failure. Your mind doesn't just want you to succeed. It wants you to succeed perfectly immediately without mistakes, setbacks, or learning curves. When you inevitably fall short of these impossible standards, your mind uses that as evidence that you should quit rather than adjust your expectations. Your mind uses perfectionism to make everything feel overwhelming. Instead of focusing on what good enough looks like, it focuses on what perfect would require. Instead of considering minimal viable progress, it contemplates ideal outcomes. This makes every project feel too big to start and every goal feel too ambitious to pursue. Perfectionism is also your mind's way of avoiding judgment. If you never put anything imperfect into the world, you never have to deal with criticism, rejection, or feedback. If you never show anyone your work until it's flawless, you never have to experience the discomfort of having your efforts evaluated. But this protection comes at an enormous cost. By avoiding the judgment that comes with imperfect action, you also avoid the learning that comes with imperfect action. You avoid the growth that comes from feedback. You avoid the improvement that comes from iteration. You choose safety over development. Your mind also uses perfectionism to maintain the illusion of potential. As long as you haven't tried, you can imagine that you would be amazing if you did try. As long as your efforts remain theoretical, your capabilities remain unlimited. Perfectionism protects your ego by keeping your abilities untested. But untested potential is worthless potential. The person who never writes remains a potentially great writer forever. The person who never starts a business remains a potentially successful entrepreneur forever. The person who never performs remains a potentially talented artist forever. Perfectionism preserves your self-image by preventing you from discovering your actual capabilities. Perfectionism also creates a distorted relationship with mistakes. Your mind treats every error as evidence of fundamental inadequacy rather than normal part of the learning process. It makes you feel like mistakes reveal something shameful about your character rather than something useful about your current skill level. This fear of mistakes creates paralysis. If making mistakes means you're inadequate, then the only safe choice is to avoid situations where mistakes are possible. But mistakes aren't character flaws. They're information. They tell you what doesn't work so you can figure out what does work. Your mind uses perfectionism to make comparison your primary measuring stick. Instead of comparing your current performance to your past performance, it compares your beginner efforts to expert results. Instead of measuring your progress against your starting point, it measures your attempts against ideal outcomes. This comparison trap makes improvement feel impossible. When you're learning something new, your mind doesn't celebrate the fact that you're better than you were yesterday. It focuses on how far you are from where you want to be. It treats the gap between current reality and future possibility as evidence of failure rather than opportunity. Perfectionism also distorts your perception of other people's success. Your mind compares your internal experience of struggle with other people's external appearance of competence. You see their polished results without seeing their messy process. You see their final version without seeing their early drafts. This creates the illusion that other people achieve success without mistakes, struggle, or imperfection. Your mind concludes that if success were meant for you, it would feel easier, look cleaner, and require less effort. It uses other people's edited highlight reels to judge your unedited behind-the-scenes reality. But everyone who has achieved anything meaningful has done so through imperfect action. Every expert was once a beginner. Every polished performance came after countless flawed rehearsals. Every successful person has a history of mistakes, failures, and incremental improvements. The way to defeat perfectionism is to lower your standards for starting and raise your standards for continuing. Make it easy to begin and difficult to quit. Focus on consistency rather than excellence. Value progress over perfection. You have to give yourself permission to be bad at things initially. Permission to make mistakes. Permission to learn slowly. Permission to produce work that isn't ready for public consumption. Permission to fail forward rather than remaining perfectly still. Done is better than perfect. Imperfect action is better than perfect inaction. Movement with mistakes is better than stillness with standards. Your mind will resist this logic because it threatens the protective bubble that perfectionism provides. But protection that prevents growth isn't actually protection. It's imprisonment. You don't need to eliminate your desire for quality. You just need to separate quality from perfection. Quality can be achieved through iteration, feedback, and improvement. Perfection is an illusion that prevents you from starting the process that leads to quality. Your future success is not waiting for your current perfection. It's waiting for your willingness to begin imperfectly and improve consistently. Stop letting perfectionism steal your progress in the name of protecting your ego. Chapter 10. Your brain makes other people's opinions feel more important than your own goals. Your brain has a built-in system that monitors what other people think about you. This system was useful when your survival depended on staying in good standing with your tribe. But now this same system is sabotaging your personal growth by making other people's opinions feel more important than your own goals. Your brain treats social rejection like physical danger. When you imagine someone disapproving of your choices, judging your appearance, or criticizing your efforts, your brain activates the same alarm systems that would fire if you were facing a physical threat. This is why the fear of judgment feels so intense and so real. But here's what your brain doesn't understand about modern life. Other people's opinions of you matter far less than your brain thinks they do. Most people are too busy worrying about their own problems to spend much time judging yours. Most people are too focused on their own insecurities to carefully evaluate your choices. Most people forget about your mistakes faster than you do. Your brain creates elaborate scenarios about what other people are thinking. But these scenarios are mostly fiction. You imagine that people are closely watching your every move, keeping score of your failures and forming detailed opinions about your life. But most of the judgment you fear is happening entirely in your own mind. This imaginary judgment becomes a prison. You start making decisions based on what you think other people want rather than what you actually want. You choose safety over growth because growth might attract attention. You choose conformity over authenticity because authenticity might invite criticism. Your brain also makes you hypersensitive to signs of disapproval. It interprets neutral expressions as negative judgments. It reads criticism into innocent comments. It turns minor social awkwardness into evidence of rejection. Your brain is constantly scanning for threats to your social standing. And it finds them everywhere, even when they don't exist. This hypersensitivity makes you reactive rather than proactive. Instead of pursuing your goals directly, you spend your energy trying to manage what other people think. Instead of focusing on your own growth, you focus on avoiding their disapproval. Instead of building the life you want, you build the life you think others will approve of. Your brain also uses other people's opinions to justify avoiding difficult things. If you're afraid of starting a business, your brain will focus on all the people who might think you're being unrealistic. If you're afraid of changing careers, your brain will imagine all the people who might question your judgment. It uses projected criticism as a reason to avoid risk. But most of the criticism you're avoiding doesn't actually exist. And the criticism that does exist often comes from people who aren't living the kind of life you want to live. People who have settled for mediocrity often criticize those who are trying to rise above it. People who have given up on their dreams often discourage others from pursuing theirs. Your brain makes you seek permission from people who aren't qualified to give it. You ask for approval from people who aren't living the life you want. You let people who haven't achieved what you're trying to achieve talk you out of trying. You give decision-making power to people who don't understand your vision or share your values. This external validation seeking becomes addictive. The more you rely on other people's approval to feel good about yourself, the more you need their approval to function. You start needing constant reassurance that you're making the right choices, that you're good enough, that you're on the right track, but external validation is unreliable. People change their minds. People have different standards. People project their own fears and limitations onto your situations. What one person encourages, another person discourages. What one person celebrates, another person criticizes. If you base your choices on other people's opinions, you'll never have consistent direction. Your brain also makes you overvalue the opinions of people who don't support your growth. It gives more weight to one person's criticism than to 10 people's encouragement. It remembers negative comments longer than positive ones. It treats doubt from others as more credible than belief from others. This negative bias makes you feel like everyone is against you, even when most people are either neutral or supportive. Your brain filters out encouragement and amplifies criticism because criticism feels more urgent and threatening. But criticism from people who aren't achieving what you want to achieve is not useful information. The opinions that matter are the opinions of people who have done what you're trying to do. People who have built the kind of life you want to build. People who have overcome the kind of challenges you're facing. People who understand the journey you're on because they've traveled it themselves. But even those opinions should be considered as input, not instructions. Even mentors and successful people can be wrong about what's right for you. Even experts can have blind spots. Even people you admire can have different values, different circumstances, and different definitions of success. The most important opinion is your own. You're the one who has to live with the consequences of your choices. You're the one who knows your values, your circumstances, and your goals. You're the one who will feel the regret if you don't pursue what matters to you. You're the one who will feel the satisfaction if you do. Your brain will always be sensitive to social feedback. That's hardwired into your psychology. But you can learn to distinguish between useful feedback and meaningless noise. You can learn to consider other people's perspectives without being controlled by them. You can learn to care about what others think without letting what they think dictate your choices. The goal isn't to become completely indifferent to other people's opinions. The goal is to stop letting their opinions become more important than your own vision for your life. You can listen to feedback without being paralyzed by it. You can consider criticism without being destroyed by it. You can acknowledge disapproval without being deterred by it. Your life is too important to be lived according to other people's expectations. Your dreams are too valuable to be abandoned because someone else doesn't understand them. Your potential is too precious to be wasted because you're afraid of what others might think. Stop giving other people veto power over your goals. Stop asking for permission from people who aren't qualified to give it. Stop seeking approval from people who aren't living the life you want to live. Your brain will resist this independence because it feels dangerous. But the real danger is living someone else's version of your life instead of your own. Chapter 11. Your mind uses analysis paralysis to disguise fear as intelligence. Your mind has discovered that endless analysis is the perfect way to avoid action while feeling productive. It can keep you busy researching, planning, and thinking without ever requiring you to actually do anything. Analysis paralysis isn't about being thorough. It's about being afraid. Your mind uses the appearance of careful consideration to hide from the reality of uncomfortable action. When you're facing something challenging, your mind immediately suggests that you need more information, more research, more planning, more analysis. It convinces you that acting without complete information is reckless. That starting without a perfect plan is foolish. That moving forward without considering every possible outcome is irresponsible. But this need for more information is never satisfied. There's always another article to read, another expert to consult, another angle to consider. Your mind keeps moving. The goalposts of what constitutes enough preparation. What started as reasonable due diligence becomes an infinite loop of information gathering that never leads to action. Your mind uses analysis paralysis because thinking about doing something feels like progress without the risks that come with actually doing something. When you're researching and planning, you feel like you're moving forward. You feel productive. You feel like you're taking your goals seriously, but you're not actually making progress. You're just creating the illusion of progress. This illusion is seductive because it provides all the emotional satisfaction of working toward your goals without any of the vulnerability that comes with real effort. You get to feel like you're pursuing your dreams without risking failure. You get to feel like you're being responsible without facing uncertainty. You get to feel like you're making progress without making yourself uncomfortable. Your mind also uses analysis paralysis to maintain perfectionism. As long as you're still researching and planning, your eventual action can still be perfect. As long as you're still analyzing options, you can still choose the ideal path. But once you start acting, you have to accept imperfection. You have to deal with uncertainty. You have to face the reality that you're figuring things out as you go. The analysis paralysis trap is particularly effective because it exploits your desire to be smart and responsible. Your mind frames endless research as intellectual rigor. It makes you feel like you're being more thoughtful and careful than people who act quickly. It turns procrastination into a virtue and action into recklessness. But intelligence isn't about how much information you can gather. It's about how effectively you can act with the information you have. Smart people don't wait for perfect information because they understand that perfect information doesn't exist. They gather enough information to make reasonable decisions and then they act while learning more through experience. Your mind creates analysis paralysis by focusing on everything that could go wrong instead of everything that could go right. It makes you research every possible obstacle, every potential complication, every way your plan might fail. It turns reasonable risk assessment into catastrophic thinking that makes action feel impossible. This negative focus creates a distorted view of reality. Your mind becomes an expert on everything that might not work while remaining ignorant about what might work beautifully. It can imagine 100 ways your business might fail but struggles to envision even one way it might succeed. It can predict every possible criticism of your creative work, but can't picture the positive impact it might have. Analysis paralysis also exploits your fear of regret. Your mind convinces you that making the wrong choice would be devastating, that choosing the imperfect option would be a mistake you'd regret forever, that acting without complete certainty is gambling with your future. But not choosing is also a choice. And the regret of never trying is often worse than the regret of trying imperfectly. Your mind uses analysis paralysis to avoid accountability. As long as you're still deciding, you don't have to take responsibility for results. As long as you're still planning, you don't have to face the possibility of failure. As long as you're still researching, you don't have to confront your actual capabilities and limitations. But this avoidance of accountability is also an avoidance of growth. You can't improve without feedback. You can't learn without experience. You can't develop skills without practice. Analysis paralysis keeps you safely theoretical while preventing you from becoming practically capable. Your mind also creates false complexity to justify extended analysis. It takes simple decisions and makes them seem incredibly complex. It takes straightforward actions and makes them seem impossibly complicated. It turns basic choices into elaborate decision trees that require extensive research to navigate. Most decisions that feel complex are actually quite simple. The complexity is manufactured by your mind to justify avoiding action. Do you want to be healthier? Start eating better and exercising more. Do you want to build a business? Start creating value for people and charging for it. Do you want to improve your relationships? Start having honest conversations and being more present. The specifics matter, but they can be figured out through action. You don't need to analyze your way to perfect clarity. You need to act your way to practical understanding. Real learning happens through doing, not through thinking about doing. Analysis paralysis also uses comparison as a weapon against action. Your mind convinces you that you need to research every possible option before choosing any option. It makes you feel like you need to evaluate every alternative before committing to any alternative. But perfect optimization is impossible, and the search for it prevents you from making any choice at all. The goal isn't to make the perfect choice. The goal is to make a good choice and then make it work through effort and adaptation. Most successful people didn't succeed because they made perfect initial decisions. They succeeded because they made reasonable decisions and then executed them well. Your mind uses analysis paralysis to maintain the illusion of control. It makes you feel like gathering more information will give you more control over outcomes. But information doesn't guarantee control. Action combined with adaptation gives you influence over results. But nothing gives you complete control. The antidote to analysis paralysis is setting decision deadlines. Give yourself a specific amount of time to gather information and then make a decision regardless of whether you feel ready. Most decisions are reversible or adjustable. Most choices can be modified based on new information. Most paths can be changed if they're not working. You also have to accept that some uncertainty is unavoidable. You'll never have complete information. You'll never eliminate all risk. You'll never guarantee perfect outcomes. Acting despite uncertainty isn't reckless. It's how progress happens. It's how growth occurs. It's how you learn what actually works instead of what theoretically might work. Stop using intelligence as an excuse for inaction. Stop using analysis as a substitute for courage. Stop using research as a replacement for results. Your mind will always be able to find more information to gather, more factors to consider, more complications to analyze, but at some point you have to stop thinking and start doing. The world rewards people who take imperfect action more than people who create perfect plans. Your mind knows this, which is exactly why it keeps you trapped in analysis instead of moving you toward action. Chapter 12. Your brain creates fake complexity to make simple things feel impossible. Your brain is a complexity-generating machine. It takes simple tasks and makes them feel complicated. It takes straightforward processes and makes them seem overwhelming. It takes basic actions and makes them appear to require advanced expertise. This artificial complexity is one of your mind's most effective tools for preventing you from taking action. The truth is that most things that could improve your life are fundamentally simple. Losing weight is about eating less and moving more. Building wealth is about spending less than you earn and investing the difference. Improving relationships is about being honest and present. Getting stronger is about progressive overload and consistency. Learning skills is about deliberate practice over time. But your mind can't let things be that simple. Simple means you have no excuse not to start. Simple means you can't hide behind complexity. Simple means you have to face the fact that you're avoiding action, not lacking understanding. So your mind creates elaborate barriers, complicated requirements, and sophisticated justifications for why simple things aren't actually simple. Your mind creates fake complexity by focusing on exceptions rather than rules. Instead of recognizing that weight loss is fundamentally about caloric balance, it focuses on metabolic disorders, genetic predispositions, hormonal imbalances, and dietary sensitivities. These factors exist, but they're exceptions that affect a small percentage of people. For most people, weight loss is still about eating less and moving more. This exception-focused thinking makes you feel like you're a special case that requires specialized solutions. Your mind convinces you that the basic principles that work for everyone else won't work for you because your situation is unique. Your challenges are different. Your circumstances are more complicated. Your mind also creates complexity by requiring perfect understanding before action. It makes you feel like you need to understand every mechanism, every variable, every potential complication before you can begin. It turns practical tasks into theoretical dissertations that require extensive study before implementation. But understanding and action are different skills. You don't need to understand how an engine works to drive a car. You don't need to understand nutrition science to eat healthier. You don't need to understand exercise physiology to get stronger. You need enough understanding to begin. And you can develop deeper understanding through experience. Your mind creates complexity by bundling separate actions into overwhelming packages. Instead of thinking about one workout, it thinks about designing a complete fitness program. Instead of thinking about one healthy meal, it thinks about overhauling your entire diet. Instead of thinking about one productive hour, it thinks about restructuring your entire schedule. This bundling makes simple actions feel like massive undertakings. Your mind won't let you just do one push-up. It insists that you need a complete workout plan. It won't let you just eat one healthy meal. It demands a comprehensive nutrition strategy. It turns single actions into complex systems that feel too overwhelming to start. Your mind also creates fake complexity by requiring optimization before action. It makes you feel like you need to find the best possible approach before you can begin any approach. It won't let you start with good enough. It demands that you research the optimal method, the perfect system, the most efficient process. But optimization is the enemy of action. The best approach is worthless if you never implement it. A mediocre plan that you follow is infinitely better than a perfect plan that you never start. Your mind uses the pursuit of optimization to prevent you from making any progress at all. Your mind creates complexity by making you consider every possible variable simultaneously. Instead of focusing on the one or two factors that have the biggest impact, it makes you worry about dozens of minor details. Instead of concentrating on the core principles that drive results, it distracts you with peripheral considerations that barely matter. This overwhelming complexity makes you feel like you need to control everything perfectly before you can control anything at all. But most variables are either outside your control or have minimal impact on your results. The key is identifying the few factors that matter most and focusing your energy there. Your mind also uses fake complexity to justify procrastination. When something feels complicated, delaying feels reasonable. When something seems to require extensive preparation, waiting feels responsible. When something appears to need specialized knowledge, not starting feels prudent. But this complexity is often manufactured. Your mind takes simple actions and invents elaborate prerequisites. It takes basic concepts and wraps them in technical language. It takes straightforward processes and breaks them into unnecessary steps. The complexity creation process is also self-reinforcing. The more you research without acting, the more complex things seem to become. The more information you gather, the more variables you discover. The more you think about something, the more complicated it appears. Analysis without action breeds complexity without clarity. Your mind creates fake complexity because complexity feels safer than simplicity. Complex problems can be endlessly studied. Simple problems demand immediate action. Complex challenges can be postponed indefinitely. Simple challenges can be tackled today. But complexity without action is just sophisticated procrastination. Understanding every nuance of a problem doesn't solve the problem. Knowing every possible approach doesn't require you to choose an approach. Researching every variable doesn't force you to control the variables that matter. The antidote to fake complexity is aggressive simplification. When your mind starts making something feel complicated, ask yourself what the absolute basics are. What's the simplest version of this action? What's the most straightforward approach? What would this look like if you couldn't overthink it? Most complex problems have simple starting points. You don't need to solve everything at once. You don't need to optimize everything immediately. You don't need to understand everything perfectly. You just need to identify the next simple action and take it. Your mind will resist simplification because simplicity removes excuses for inaction. Simple things can be done today. Simple actions can be started immediately. Simple processes can be implemented without extensive preparation. And your mind prefers complexity because complexity provides endless reasons to wait. But simple doesn't mean easy. Simple means clear. Simple means direct. Simple means you know exactly what to do next. Even if doing it requires effort, consistency, and patience. Simple eliminates the confusion that prevents action while preserving the challenge that creates growth. Stop letting your mind complicate what should be clear. Stop allowing artificial complexity to prevent real progress. Stop using sophisticated understanding as a substitute for simple action. The world rewards people who take simple action consistently more than people who understand complex theory perfectly. Most breakthroughs come from applying simple principles consistently, not from discovering complex secrets. Most success comes from doing basic things well, not from mastering advanced techniques. Most progress comes from clear action, not from complex analysis. Your mind creates fake complexity to protect you from the discomfort of simple action. But simple action is where all real change begins. And simple action is available to you right now, regardless of how complex your mind tries to make it seem. Chapter 13. Your comfort zone has a defense system that fights expansion. Your comfort zone isn't just a psychological concept. It's a sophisticated defense system that actively fights against any attempt to expand it. This system monitors your behavior, thoughts, and circumstances, and it responds to any deviation from familiar patterns with increasing levels of resistance designed to pull you back to safety. The defense system starts with subtle internal pressure. When you first step outside your comfort zone, you feel mild anxiety, doubt, or discomfort. This isn't random emotion. This is your brain's early warning system telling you that you're moving into unfamiliar territory. Most people interpret these feelings as signs that they're doing something wrong, but they're actually signs that they're doing something right. If you ignore the early warnings and continue expanding your comfort zone, the defense system escalates. The anxiety becomes stronger. The doubt becomes more persistent. The discomfort becomes more intense. Your brain is ramping up the pressure to convince you to return to familiar territory before you venture too far from safety. Your comfort zone defense system also uses sabotage tactics. It makes you forget important appointments related to your growth. It makes you oversleep when you plan to start a new routine. It makes you sick right before important opportunities. It creates emergencies and distractions that seem to require your immediate attention. These aren't coincidences. These are your brain's attempts to protect you from the perceived danger of change by creating obstacles that force you back into familiar patterns. Your unconscious mind is working against your conscious goals because it interprets growth as threat. The defense system also employs emotional manipulation. It floods you with feelings of inadequacy when you attempt challenging tasks. It creates overwhelming sensations when you face uncertainty. It generates intense cravings for familiar comforts when you're pushing yourself to grow. These emotions feel completely real and justified, but they're actually chemical weapons deployed to stop your expansion. Your comfort zone defense system gets stronger the more it's activated. Every time you retreat when it sounds the alarm, you teach it that its tactics work. Every time you give up when it creates resistance, you reinforce its protective programming. Every time you choose familiar over growth, you make the defense system more sensitive and more aggressive. This is why personal growth often feels like it gets harder before it gets easier. You're not just trying to build new habits or develop new skills. You're fighting against a defense system that gets more sophisticated with each attempt you make to overcome it. You're battling against your own unconscious programming that's designed to keep you exactly where you are. The defense system also uses rationalization to justify retreat. After it creates enough emotional pressure to make you stop growing, it provides logical-sounding reasons why stopping was the smart choice. You were being realistic. You were listening to your body. You were being responsible. You were avoiding unnecessary stress. These rationalizations feel true because your defense system has flooded your brain with stress hormones that make expansion feel genuinely dangerous. When you're experiencing the chemical reality of threat, logical arguments for retreat feel completely reasonable. Your brain creates the emotional state that makes its own arguments convincing. Your comfort zone defense system also monitors your thoughts, not just your actions. When you start thinking about making significant changes even before you take any action, the system begins generating doubt, fear, and resistance. It attacks your plans before you implement them. It undermines your confidence before you test it. This is why you can feel anxious about goals you haven't even started pursuing yet. Your brain is already defending against the possibility that you might actually follow through. It's trying to kill your expansion plans in the thinking stage so it doesn't have to fight them in the action stage. The defense system uses past failures as ammunition against future attempts. It reminds you of every time you tried to change and didn't sustain it. It points to previous setbacks as evidence that this attempt will also fail. It uses your history as proof that expansion is futile and retreat is wise, but past failures don't predict future outcomes. Past setbacks don't determine future capabilities. Past struggles don't define future potential. Your defense system uses selective memory to make previous difficulties seem more significant than they actually were while ignoring evidence of your ability to overcome challenges. Your comfort zone defense system also creates false urgencies that pull you back to familiar territory. It makes old problems suddenly seem critical. It makes comfortable activities suddenly seem essential. It makes familiar relationships suddenly seem needy. It creates the illusion that you can't afford to focus on growth because other things require your immediate attention. These urgencies are manufactured. Your brain creates them because it knows you'll abandon expansion to handle what feels urgent. It makes comfortable activities feel important. So, you'll choose them over uncomfortable growth activities. The defense system also uses comparison as a weapon against expansion. When you're pushing yourself to grow, it shows you people who seem to be succeeding without effort. It makes you feel like growth should be easier if you were really meant to succeed. It uses other people's apparent ease to make your struggle feel like evidence of inadequacy. But everyone who expands their comfort zone faces resistance. Everyone who grows confronts their defense system. Everyone who changes has to overcome the pull back to familiar territory. The difference between those who succeed and those who don't isn't the absence of resistance. It's the willingness to continue despite resistance. Understanding your comfort zone defense system gives you power over it when you recognize resistance as a normal response to growth rather than evidence that you should stop. You can continue expanding despite the discomfort. When you understand that emotional pressure is just your brain trying to keep you safe, you can feel the pressure without surrendering to it. The goal isn't to eliminate your comfort zone defense system. It's hardwired into your brain and serves important protective functions. The goal is to recognize when it's operating and choose to expand anyway. You can acknowledge the resistance without being controlled by it. You can feel the discomfort without retreating from it. Every time you push through the resistance and continue expanding despite your defense system's protests, you teach your brain that growth is safe. You demonstrate that expansion doesn't lead to destruction. You prove that you can handle uncertainty, discomfort, and challenge. Over time, your comfort zone naturally expands to include the new territories you've consistently occupied. What once triggered intense resistance becomes normal and comfortable. What once felt dangerous becomes familiar and safe. Your defense system adapts to your new reality and begins protecting your expanded capabilities instead of fighting them. But this adaptation only happens if you consistently push through the initial resistance. If you retreat every time your defense system activates, it never learns that expansion is safe. If you give up every time you feel uncomfortable, your comfort zone never grows. The only way to expand your comfort zone is to consistently do things that activate its defense system and continue doing them until the system adapts. Chapter 14. How to recognize when your mind is lying to you. Your mind lies to you constantly, not maliciously, but protectively. It distorts reality, manufactures excuses, and creates false narratives to keep you safe from discomfort, failure, and change. Learning to recognize these lies is essential for taking control of your life because you can't make good decisions based on false information. The first category of lies your mind tells is about time. It tells you that you don't have enough time to pursue your goals, that you're too busy with other responsibilities, that you'll have more time later when circumstances change. But when you actually track how you spend your time, you discover hours of wasted activity every day. Your mind lies about time because time scarcity is a perfect excuse for inaction. If you truly don't have time, then not pursuing your goals becomes reasonable rather than avoidable. But the truth is, you have the same amount of time as everyone else. You just choose how to use it. And your mind helps you choose comfort over growth by lying about availability. Your mind also lies about your energy levels. It tells you that you're too tired to exercise, too drained to work on important projects, too exhausted to take on new challenges. But then you somehow find energy for entertainment, social media, and activities that don't require growth. Your mind isn't reporting actual energy levels. It's reporting enthusiasm levels for different types of activities. You have energy for what excites you and limited energy for what challenges you. This isn't because challenging activities are more physically demanding. It's because your mind allocates energy based on comfort rather than importance. It lies about being tired to steer you away from growth activities and toward familiar activities. Your mind lies about your capabilities. It tells you that you're not smart enough, strong enough, or talented enough to succeed at challenging goals. It focuses on your weaknesses while ignoring your strengths. It remembers your failures while forgetting your achievements. It compares your starting point to other people's advanced positions. These capability lies feel true because your mind supports them with selective evidence. But capability isn't fixed. Skills can be developed. Strength can be built. Intelligence can be applied and expanded. Your mind lies about your limitations to protect you from the discomfort of testing them. Your mind also lies about motivation. It tells you that you need to feel motivated before you can take action. That you should wait until you feel inspired. That successful people are naturally driven while you're naturally lazy. But motivation is a result of action, not a prerequisite for action. The motivation lie keeps you waiting for a feeling that only comes through doing. Your mind knows that if you wait for motivation, you'll wait forever. It uses the motivation lie to ensure you never start the cycle of action that creates the motivation to continue. Your mind lies about perfectionism by telling you it's a strength. It says that having high standards is admirable, that wanting to do things right is responsible, that waiting until you can do something perfectly is wise. But perfectionism isn't about excellence. It's about avoidance disguised as conscientiousness. Your mind lies about timing by telling you that now isn't the right time. That you should wait until you have more money, more knowledge, more support, better circumstances. But there will never be a perfect time. There will always be obstacles, limitations, and uncertainties. Your mind uses timing lies to justify permanent postponement. Your mind lies about other people's opinions. It tells you that everyone is watching and judging your efforts. That people will think you're foolish for trying. That criticism from others is devastating and should be avoided. But most people are too busy with their own lives to closely monitor yours. The opinion lies make you live for imaginary approval from people who aren't paying attention. Your mind creates elaborate scenarios about judgment that mostly exists in your own head. It makes you choose safety over authenticity to avoid criticism that probably won't come from people whose opinions probably don't matter. Your mind also lies about failure. It tells you that failure is devastating, permanent, and reflects your fundamental inadequacy. That making mistakes reveals your limitations. That setbacks prove you should quit. But failure is information, not identity. Mistakes are learning opportunities, not character flaws. The failure lies make you avoid risk instead of managing it. Your mind treats all failure as equally devastating when most failure is temporary and recoverable. It makes you fear consequences that are usually far less severe than imagined. Your mind lies about complexity by making simple things seem complicated. It tells you that you need extensive preparation before you can begin. That you need perfect understanding before you can act. That you need to consider every variable before you can move forward. But most things that could improve your life are fundamentally simple. Your mind lies about necessity by telling you that entertainment, distractions, and comfort activities are essential for your well-being. That you deserve constant relaxation. That you need frequent breaks from any kind of challenge or effort. But these activities become excessive when they replace growth rather than supplement it. Your mind lies about urgency by making unimportant things feel urgent and important things feel optional. It tells you that you need to respond to every notification immediately, that you need to handle every minor crisis before focusing on major opportunities, that other people's emergencies are more important than your goals. To recognize when your mind is lying, pay attention to the emotions attached to your thoughts. Thoughts that make you feel helpless, overwhelmed, or paralyzed are usually lies designed to keep you from taking action. Thoughts that make challenging things feel impossible are usually lies designed to keep you in your comfort zone. Also notice when your thoughts are absolute. Your mind lies in extremes. It tells you that you always fail, never succeed, can't do anything right. Real assessment acknowledges both strengths and weaknesses, successes and failures, progress and setbacks. Absolute thinking is usually protective lying. Pay attention to thoughts that come with elaborate justifications. When your mind works hard to convince you of something, it's usually trying to sell you a lie. Truth doesn't need complex arguments. Lies require sophisticated reasoning to make them seem believable. Notice when your thoughts focus only on obstacles while ignoring opportunities. When your mind only shows you what could go wrong while hiding what could go right. When it only remembers failures while forgetting successes. This selective attention is a sign that your mind is lying to protect you from risk. The key to overcoming mental lies is not to fight them, but to recognize them. You don't have to believe every thought you think. You can observe your thoughts without being controlled by them. You can acknowledge your mind's protective instincts without letting them make your decisions. When you catch your mind lying, ask yourself what truth it might be trying to protect you from. What action is it trying to prevent? What growth is it trying to avoid? Usually the thing your mind is lying to protect you from is exactly the thing you need to do. Chapter 15. Reprogramming your mental operating system. Your mind runs on an operating system that was installed without your permission and hasn't been updated in years. This system is full of outdated programming, protective subroutines and automatic responses that worked in different circumstances but now limit your potential. Reprogramming this system isn't about positive thinking or willpower. It's about systematically replacing old code with new code through consistent practice. The first step in reprogramming is recognizing that your current mental operating system is not you. It's just software running in the background. You are not your automatic thoughts, your emotional reactions, or your behavioral patterns. You are the awareness that can observe these systems and choose whether to follow their instructions. This recognition is crucial because it creates space between you and your mental programming. When you realize that anxious thoughts are just old security software running unnecessarily, you can choose not to take those thoughts seriously. When you understand that procrastination is just outdated protection code, you can override it with better programming. Reprogramming starts with interrupting automatic patterns. Your mind operates largely on autopilot, running the same thought patterns, emotional reactions, and behavioral responses. It's always run. To install new programming, you have to catch these automatic patterns when they start and consciously choose different responses. This interruption process requires constant vigilance in the beginning. You have to become aware of your automatic thoughts about challenges, setbacks, and opportunities. You have to notice your automatic emotional reactions to discomfort, uncertainty, and criticism. You have to catch your automatic behavioral responses to stress, boredom, and fear. Every time you catch an automatic pattern and choose a different response, you're writing new code. Every time you feel fear about taking action and take action anyway, you're programming courage. Every time you feel resistance to difficult work and do the work anyway, you're programming discipline. Every time you feel like quitting and continue instead, you're programming persistence. The new programming has to be installed through repetition. Your brain learns through pattern recognition. When you consistently respond to similar situations in new ways, your brain starts to recognize the new pattern and make it the default response. What feels difficult and conscious at first becomes automatic and unconscious with enough practice. But here's what most people don't understand about reprogramming. The old software doesn't disappear. It's still there running in the background, ready to take control when your conscious attention wavers. This is why you can make significant progress and then suddenly find yourself back in old patterns when you're tired, stressed, or distracted. Effective reprogramming requires overriding old patterns, not just adding new ones. You can't just install confidence software while fear software continues running. You can't just add discipline programming while procrastination programming remains active. You have to systematically replace old code with new code. This replacement process involves questioning the assumptions built into your old programming. Your mind operates on beliefs about what's safe, what's possible, what's important, and what's necessary. Many of these beliefs were formed when you were younger and less capable. But they continue running your mental operating system as an adult. You have to examine these foundational beliefs and update them based on your current reality. The belief that failure is devastating might have protected you as a child, but it limits you as an adult. The belief that other people's opinions determine your worth might have helped you fit in socially, but it prevents you from pursuing authentic goals. Reprogramming also requires installing new default responses to common triggers. Instead of automatically choosing comfort when faced with discomfort, you program yourself to automatically choose growth. Instead of automatically avoiding when faced with fear, you program yourself to automatically investigate. Instead of automatically quitting when faced with difficulty, you program yourself to automatically persist. These new default responses have to be programmed through deliberate practice in low-stakes situations. You can't wait until you're facing major challenges to test new programming. You have to practice the new responses in daily situations so they become automatic when bigger opportunities arise. Successful reprogramming also requires updating your identity programming. Your mind has code that defines who you are, what you're capable of, and what you do in different situations. If your identity programming says you're not a disciplined person, your mind will sabotage attempts at discipline to maintain consistency with your self-image. Identity reprogramming happens through action, not affirmation. You don't become disciplined by repeating that you're disciplined. You become disciplined by consistently choosing disciplined actions until discipline becomes part of your automatic identity programming. You don't think your way into a new identity. You act your way into it. The reprogramming process also requires installing better decision-making algorithms. Your current programming might prioritize short-term comfort over long-term benefit, or immediate gratification over delayed satisfaction. You need to install programming that automatically weighs long-term consequences, considers opportunity costs, and chooses based on values rather than feelings. Better decision-making programming comes from consistently asking better questions. Instead of asking how do I feel about this, you ask what would the person I want to become do in this situation. Instead of asking what's the easiest option, you ask what's the best option for my long-term goals. Instead of asking what if I fail, you ask what if I succeed. Reprogramming your mental operating system also means installing better error handling protocols. Your current programming might interpret setbacks as reasons to quit, mistakes as evidence of inadequacy, and criticism as attacks on your worth. You need programming that interprets setbacks as learning opportunities, mistakes as valuable feedback, and criticism as useful information. The new error handling protocols help you recover faster from inevitable failures and setbacks. Instead of crashing when things go wrong, your mental system automatically looks for lessons, adjustments, and improvements. Instead of interpreting difficulties as signs to stop, your system interprets them as signs to adapt. Effective reprogramming requires patience with the installation process. New mental programming doesn't install overnight. It takes consistent practice over time for new patterns to become automatic. You have to be willing to consciously choose new responses repeatedly before they become unconscious defaults. But here's what makes the effort worthwhile. Once new programming is fully installed, it runs automatically. You don't have to think about being disciplined. You don't have to force yourself to take action. You don't have to fight against old patterns. The new programming handles these decisions for you. A fully reprogrammed mental operating system automatically chooses growth over comfort, action over procrastination, persistence over quitting. It interprets challenges as opportunities, setbacks as learning experiences, and criticism as useful feedback. It operates from abundance rather than scarcity, possibility rather than limitation, strength rather than fear. This reprogramming is the most important work you can do. It's the foundation that makes all other improvements possible. When your mental operating system is working for you instead of against you, every other goal becomes achievable. When your mind is programmed for growth instead of protection, your potential becomes unlimited. Your mind doesn't have to work against you. It can become your greatest ally in building the life you want. But only if you take responsibility for reprogramming it. Only if you commit to systematically replacing old limiting code with new empowering programming. Only if you do the daily work of choosing new responses until they become automatic patterns. The choice is yours. You can continue running outdated mental software that keeps you stuck, safe, and small. Or you can do the work to reprogram your mind for growth, success, and fulfillment. Your future depends on which choice you make. And that choice starts right now with the very next thought you choose to think and the very next action you choose to